Hear me now? Great.
There you go.
Obviously, the music streaming biz is all the rage these days. Revenue is growing. A big part of that is the subscription part of the market, which we'll get into a little bit later. There's a lot of ad-supported video in music,
Yep.
And that's what you're dealing with. I was just talking with someone off stage here who was saying, free is dead. So I want to ask you first, is free dead?
You know, the person that you were talking to probably has a very high household income. So I wouldn't think free would be dead for the mass majority of users in the world. And it's key that you say world as well,
Right.
because it's a global content business. But no, I mean, from my perspective, having worked in and around a lot of subscription-based platforms, you always need a free front porch. It's your best marketing tool. You need the ability to sample, the ability to connect. But moreover, dual revenue streams are probably the most lucrative way to monetize content. If you look at the mass majority of content in the broadcast and cable world, those are dual revenue streams where you're getting subscription and advertising. And you know, the major content buckets that exist are movies, television, and music. We represent the sight, sound, and motion embodiment of music. So we kind of sit squarely in a spot where you would definitely want both.
Right. Okay. So tell us, to go a little bit deeper on how you monetize on the ad-based side. What are the ways you're doing it? Are you doing it as well as you'd like to do it? You know?
Yeah. So what we've done with Vevo in particular is that over the past couple of years, and it is quite a recent development, we've started to shift our strategy more towards an audience-based sale, kind of looking at the mass majority of the content through the lens of an enhanced cable network. And the reason why we do that is just because of the reach that it represents and how audiences cume in very short periods of time. You can sell it more like TV. You can harken back to the days of music television and obviously see that the demand still exists. It just exists on another platform. So we're selling sight, sound, and motion via advertising, 15-second spots. And we're selling it on an audience basis, so typically with some level of demographics and a lot of the time overlays of data and genre and things like that.
What kind of data do you use? I mean, how personally? We know that data-driven advertising is sort of kind of the future in advertising. So what kind? You have a lot of data.
We do.
At Google, Vevo, YouTube.
Yep.
How do you use it?
So the mass majority of the data that we start with is reg data, and there's always a proxy that you can use for registration and project that out onto audiences that show you a really good, a really good representation of who you might be reaching through that video at that time. But then, through a partnership with DoubleClick, which is owned by Google, we are now overlaying data from companies like BlueKai and Excelate that bring in more behavioral targeting opportunities, which, in a nutshell, are just the recency and frequency of a user's movements throughout the internet. It allows you to take in first-party data from marketers like Ford, for instance, that may be looking to marry the context of a country music video with a in-market F-150 buyer.
Right. So if you're watching country music videos, you're gonna see some F-150 ads. I imagine you might also see that follow you around the web too. You might see F-150 ads elsewhere, right? I mean, that's kind of
you most certainly
how
would.
it's going to work, right?
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, so you talked about it, comparing it to like an enhanced cable offering.
Yeah.
Are you seeing movement from linear, regular TV in terms of advertising spend towards your platform?
Yeah, in general, the supply in television, whether it be broadcast or cable, is shrinking. Those are ratings points, year over year in decline. Those declines are concentrated more in the 18 to 34 sort of millennial set. And then when you go one generation below that, Generation Z, next millennials, whatever we want to call it, there's a lot of never hads, right? There's a lot of folks that just never would have experienced a cable or a linear television feed. So those ratings are on decline, and particularly in that demographic. So that media or that revenue does come more towards digital presence where they exist, and Vevo is one of the spots. Social media is another huge benefactor of that type of shift. But the thing that Vevo does represent that's a little bit different is that it's a like-to-like comparison, the same type of creative, the same type of measurement, and what we offer is the same currency, which is a cost per point or a GRP that we transact on. So it gives us a little bit better of a sort of a sale, if you will, to interact with the largest advertisers in the world.
And what kind of tools do you wish you had, or are you monetizing as well as you'd like? I mean, what is the kind of dream situation for being able to monetize that better?
So you can always monetize better. In fact, if you take a page out of the book of television, which is a really interesting page, is that the fewer ads that they have, the higher the price goes. It's a supply-demand environment.
Right.
So what we've been doing is we've been trying to come up with more premium opportunities inside of the landscape of Vevo. When a video drops, it's a premiere, right? And those are sold unto their own, and that represents a very perishable good.
Right.
So we price that accordingly at a premium. Things that I would love to have. I mean, we have a fairly robust set of tools that we go out to market with. A lot of that is enabled through DoubleClick and our partnership with YouTube. But addressability is a thing that we really value and is fairly bleeding edge for the advertising community. And we're getting closer and closer to it. It doesn't exist in large scale today, but higher levels of data sets that come through from whether it be device ID or your linear television set-top box or other points of your kind of daily media experience, we would be interested in just getting more and more data.
Right, more hyper-personalized than aggregated.
Yeah, just making the ads as relevant as possible. Today we use a lot of data just to give you the music that you would like. We use a series of different inputs that are derivative of the recommendation engines, not just in YouTube, but actually on our owned and operated properties as well. And it gets you a better user experience, so you stay longer and you have a kind of longer life and better lifetime value.
Right. So speaking of YouTube,
yeah.
So they've had some recent issues, as has Facebook, et cetera, with this problem of your ad support, showing up alongside a video that you wouldn't want your brand to be associated with. Have you seen over at Vevo, obviously it's a controlled environment in terms of the content you're running. It's not user generated. Are you seeing a benefit from that in terms of ads moving over towards your platform?
Yeah, I mean it's a big issue industry wide. What I would say is it's not just YouTube.
For sure.
I would liken it as well to the issues with fake news and other types of targeted media, not just paid advertising. But we are an exclusive, representation of music videos. Again, one of the largest buckets of content from a library in the world. So we do well. We're premium. We're brightly lit. We are curated. We have metadata on all of our videos that come from the labels themselves. That first and foremost look at the explicit nature of the video from a lyric standpoint, and then all through to the content itself. And then we actually do use people to look at our videos because we have them, right? It originates as an original piece of content that a producer is shooting on set. So I think the bar is a little higher for us, obviously. But yeah, we have been a beneficiary a bit, as have other folks. In fact, advertisers in certain cases have shifted some revenue back towards television. So it's kind of an interesting phenomenon.
Speaking of the label, so the recording industry, obviously their attitude in general towards streaming has been very much evolving especially over the last few years.
Yeah.
As they've seen subscription streaming revenues up. They pick a new sort of bête noire every year.
Yeah.
In recent years, there's been a little bit of concern about ad-supported video.
Yeah.
What is you deal with them on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah.
What's the current state of play there?
It's good. I mean, we're one of the larger revenue streams that are out there. The thing that you have to remember with music videos themselves is that not only are they're pieces of content that we monetize, they're also quite promotional in nature, and they have that trickle-down effect of being a marketing tool that sells music and sells streaming services, and really, in actuality, represents the artist's vision of what they think that song is about. And so it is very much driven by art. So the monetization side is a big part of it, and obviously I wouldn't be here unless there was more to do. So I think there's some major improvements that we can make there over the fullness of time. But streaming is up. The music industry is a healthy place. The numbers are up and to the right, which is great. Google's a big part of that, as are a lot of the other large kind of pure play streaming environments. So it's about extracting the most value out of each asset as possible.
Right. Now there's a lot of excitement on the subscription side, a lot of growth there. There is a premium non-ad based way to watch your platform. How is that going? That's basically via YouTube Red.
Yeah.
You have a limited amount of money in this a la carte world for, Netflix, Amazon, YouTube Red.
Yeah.
If I have $20 or $30 to spend on amongst those platforms, or Hulu as well, and Spotify, everything, right? And Spotify's getting video too. Why do you choose YouTube Red? And how do you make that pitch to the consumer?
Well, that's YouTube's pitch to make. But,
right, I understand.
Yeah,
but with your product.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Music videos are a huge draw, right?
Right.
So we represent a very large portion of what gets consumed on YouTube, and for the way the consumer mind works, again, if you think about those buckets, TV, movies, and music. Right. It's really about your passion points, and what I like about the fragmentation of media in general is that you're allowed to pick, right? It's an a la carte environment, and whether you're looking at bundles of content that are just really niche to you, or you're looking at broader sets of content, and in each genre, I think choice is always going to win. So where you vote with your dollar is a very important thing, and it's up to the services to create an environment where they surface content in an elegant way. It's a brightly lit environment, and that it's really something that is a user experience that probably will be your deciding vote. Because if you think about it, there's so many choices for where you can find any type of content. The user experience, from my experience, just professionally, has been the thing that wins. Now, YouTube has the best search in the world, right? That is one huge element of user experience that you have to flag up and say, okay, if I can find something that fast and exactly what I'm looking for, well, then that's a great user experience. If I can look at iTunes and look at how it's elegantly trayed and making recommendations to me based on what I've watched in the past and some other things that I've sampled, that's an elegant experience as well. It's pay-per-view, so a very different monetization strategy, but it's clean, brightly lit, very Apple, and it gets people in the door and spending lots of money. And then there's so many things in between that would drive you there. Your availability on given devices, your mobility, does it take up your data? So there's lots of different structures of business models that can drive your usage of a given app or a given service. I just came from a company, Fullscreen, which represents YouTubers, really, just social media stars in general, YouTube being the largest repository of where that content comes from. But we built and owned and operated subscription app, and it's a really interesting place because it's exclusive, right? So content is also one of those things that you can use in windowed environments to create exclusivity and have people that access it that have first look, first like, and have the ability to say there's a water cooler moment here. So again, kind of an interesting environment. But the kicker on that is that if you're an AT&T subscriber, that you can get that app for free for a year, and you don't pay data charges on it. Pretty good user experience, if you will.
Right.
And there's lots of sampling and examples like that, be it YouTube Red or Hulu or Netflix, where you can get that kind of customer experience and then dive in and see if the content that you like will be there.
All right, and now let's say looking outside the U.S. market for a second, where are you internationally? Where do you want to be?
Yeah, so music has always been a very global business. It's anytime you have content that extends beyond borders, you delve into licensing of that content. We have a lot of rights outside of the United States for all of the music videos, the official music videos that exist. We operate in 55 markets today as a first party. So we are directly sold, meaning these are Vevo salespeople in the US, Germany, and England. And then we are represented by partners in the remaining markets that are out there. And it's an ad sales relationship that we have internationally, and we're just trying to up the monetization of those music videos and pass that revenue back to the local labels.
Right. And are there particular markets that are more exciting to you? And how do you deal with, there's a big area on the map that might be a little bit of a black spot in China.
There are. Since I came in the door, and I've been here for a couple months, I'm really interested in Latin America. We have a very big user base in Latin America. In fact, Mexico itself is second only to the United States. It's a massive amount of consumption that exists in Latin America. And so, sort of Mexico and Brazil are the big pieces there. So focusing on that market, because it's such a developing market from basically every walk of life in business, but certainly in the advertising world, and coming up with strategies and tactics to go out and challenge the idea that the mass majority of media dollars that are spent there are on television, and very limited opportunities in terms of choice when you come to being a buyer on television in those markets. So we feel like we represent that next generation opportunity because of the sight, sound, and motion video that we represent. So,
and is the advertising market structured similarly overseas in terms of do you face sort of entrenched conservative attitudes about where to advertise?
It really varies market by market. In fact, there are certain markets that are much more conservative than the United States, and there are other markets that are much more liberal. That's everything from how they spend their money and how they measure it to the types of content that they're willing to go out and sponsor. So that's one of the challenges when you get outside the United States, regardless of what business that you're in, is that each market represents a different dynamic, and you have to really focus your strategies and tactics on that market to win. And it's highly likely, that regardless of who you are, whether you're Hulu or Netflix or Vevo, that you're going to have a really heavy bucket of local content to match more global celebrity and big mass audience content to make a relevant splash on the user base. So we focus on that all the time. We adjust our recommendation engines. Obviously, the way that people service content is very important, but it's a great problem to solve, and it's one that I think is probably it will take a very long time to figure it out.
Well, we've run out of time today to figure it out. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Patty.
it. Thanks for listening to us.
Thank you.
Thanks.